what the experience was like picking them up from the airport and meeting them for the very first time.
So we made it a point to choose them kind of early on in the process so that we could have a good amount of time to talk to them before they arrived.
Yeah.
And I think that made a huge difference because it just built up this anticipation like, oh my gosh, we cannot wait to see them. And this year, let's see, it was Aitanuk who arrived first. And when she came off the plane, it was a giant hug.
And how was it for Vika?
That was super cool too. She was tired, but still like just the smile on her face when she saw us I don't think that's anything I'm going to forget.
Hello and welcome to this wonderful episode of Life Exchange Stories of Understanding. I am your host, Kelsey Ross, and today we've got two guests joining us, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourselves.
So I'm Krystle Wells. I'm a host mom and local coordinator in San Antonio, Texas.
And I'm Eric Wells, host parent, married obviously to Krystle here.
Krystle, Eric, thank you both so much for joining me today and chatting with me about your experience. I can't wait to hear more about your story. I'm so excited, but just thank you for your time. So to get started, why don't you all tell me a little bit about yourselves and how the Eric and Krystle came to be?
Okay, so we met in music school, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was a good 10 years before we actually got together as a couple. And we actually discovered that we're unable to have children of our own. And hosting exchange students seemed like a great way to grow our family. It's been amazing, like more than we could have imagined. It started when I was teaching high school choir. I had a couple of exchange students in my choir program, and getting to know them and what amazing people they were, I decided I should do this too. And then I talked to Eric.
And when she brought it up, it was an interesting opportunity to learn more about the world. I've always been fascinated with different cultures and stuff like that. I remember taking courses in college that was focused on culture, and actually had conversation with the students we're hosting right now this year about that and how that fell into hosting foreign exchange students.
Eric, how were you feeling when she first brought the topic up of hosting? Was there any anxiety or, oh no, what is she talking about?
Well, she had talked to me about the students she's been hosting and how awesome they were and the great interactions they had. I even got to meet them at concerts and stuff. And, the fact that we can't have children had been a topic of conversation in the past. And so it was exciting to think about, but also a little bit intimidating, having never been a parent per se. But being a teacher myself, both of us being teachers, we knew we had the right mindset to become parents in that sense.
That's wonderful. And with teaching, so you're around students all the time. And Krystle, you had mentioned that you had exchange students in your class. Was that your first introduction into exchange students in the world of cultural exchange?
For the most part, yes. I met one when I myself was in high school.
Okay.
We had a young man from Japan in our jazz band.
Cool.
So, yeah. But getting to know the kiddos in my choir as an adult, it helped me understand even more what it was all about.
Yeah.
So we had familiarity with high school exchange programs a little bit. I knew somebody I grew up with. They had a foreign exchange student from Spain for a little while.
Yeah.
But we both ended up getting our master's degrees at the same time. And there were actually several students from China that were in the same program we were.
Yeah.
So that was also an opportunity to kind of get exposed to foreign exchange type programs.
So was it through these exchange students in your choir, Krystle, that you had first heard about YFU, or had you heard about it prior to that?
So, actually, our first hosting experience was with a different agency. After that experience, which with our girls we hosted that year, we had Maya from Germany and Benedetta from Italy. Our experience with them was fantastic. But unfortunately, we decided that we wanted to find a different agency. We did some research and found YFU. Eric can speak to this too, but I think what really drew us to YFU was how long it's been around, how far it reaches in the world, and its original inception and the reason that it came to be.
Gotcha.
That is a large part of it. There was another aspect because I remember doing a lot of research at the time when we were trying to find a new organization. And one thing I noticed in reading, like, why should become a host parent is YFU actually does put an emphasis on the possibility of hosting students that have chronic health conditions. As a type 1 diabetic myself, I found that fascinating. And we made sure to put that in there, that if there was somebody from another country who has type 1 diabetes, we would be comfortable hosting them because we have experience dealing with it. And so that was kind of a neat thing that the program really actually talked about that.
That's great. You'd be surprised at how many different organizations aren't comfortable taking on students with chronic medical conditions or students who I wouldn't say are outside of the norm, but are outside of like the typical high school student experience. And I was something that I've always really enjoyed about this place. I'm glad we found some common ground there. You did your research, you found YFU and decided to give it a shot. So after that, how did you start preparing to take on another year of hosting?
So we met with our local coordinator, David. Unfortunately, he has since passed. Yeah, but he was a huge part of YFU for many years. And when we attended his funeral, I mean, some of his former students were there. So just the impact he had on everybody was kind of amazing.
He's a fantastic guy. I remember I've worked with him a little bit, and he's got quite a big heart.
Yes. And when he met with us the first time, that's kind of how we knew that YFU was the right choice.
Yeah.
So he was just so, what's the word? Just so like realistic, open, honest, caring.
Yeah. David could talk to anybody. That's something that I've heard from many people, and I myself have experienced with talking to him. It's a tremendous loss, unfortunately. Yeah. But I am glad that he was able to talk with you and make you feel comfortable about coming to YFU and hosting. So after you had talked with him, how did you go about choosing the exchange students that you wanted to host? Because I believe you had 2 students, correct?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So first off, why? Why 2?
And I'll that's actually interesting to talk about. When we first got into this with the previous organization, we had gone into it thinking, oh, we'll host 1 student. The person we were working with at that time pointed out that having 1 student in the home with no other kids could turn into a situation where they're kind of lonely. There's nobody else in the house their age and things like that that they can relate to. And we realized that's kind of an important thing, be able to, for them to have somebody that's not an adult that they can talk to and somebody that's on their level. So at that time, we chose to host 2 students, and Krystle already mentioned that, Maya and Benedetta.
Yeah.
And so going into it this time, from the get-go, we're like, we're going to host 2. In the previous time, Maya was from Germany, Benedetta was from Italy. And so as we were going into it this second time this year, we actually decided to look at other parts of the world and end up hosting a girl from Germany and a girl from Kyrgyzstan.
Interesting.
To kind of explore different cultural things that we had never experienced before.
Yeah. Was it just their cultural aspects that drew you to them, or were there certain traits in their in what you had learned about them that really inspired you to host them?
So it was just one of those feelings when we looked at their profiles and went, that's our girl. So, with Wiebke from Germany, it talked a lot about her interest in music and singing. And that, of course, resonated with me. And she ended up being in the choir program at the high school and ended up being in Region Choir, which in Texas is a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Aitunuk is a flexor. And her host family letter was like almost like a short story. Yeah. Like she's just so imaginative and such a dreamer. And I think that's what drew us to her.
Yeah, those initial host letters and things like that are such a big deal for the families, because it really gives you a kind of a peek into the kind of person that the student is. You know, we've talked with the kids. They're like, we didn't know what to put in there. And it's like, well, you did exactly what you needed to do. You put your personality, yourself into that letter. And that is what drew our attention and caused us to be interested in hosting you.
The letters always end up being a really big part as to why host families end up choosing the student that they want to host. For exchange students who might be watching this and are preparing to write their own host family letters, do you have any advice for things that they can include or how they should approach it to maybe pique the interest of a potential host family?
Well, I mean, just like every family in the United States is different, student applying to be a foreign exchange student is going to be different. Realistically, what it boils down to is putting your own personality into there.
Yeah.
Talk about it, write it so it's you that's communicating, and definitely talk about the things that interest you. We're not very sports minded people, but we definitely support interest in sports.
Yeah.
And so it's like, talk about those things that you're interested in. Things that you want to try and experience are important, because as host families, we're interested in you getting the best experience possible. So if we know what you're looking for, we can determine if we're going to be the family that can help you experience that.
Gotcha. Krystle, anything to add?
That pretty much nailed it, really.
Perfect.
It's very helpful when the letter is written in their own voice. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And not just a narrative of, I live here, this is who I am. Yeah.
Right. Throwing a little bit of themselves into it. It's not like you're not writing a cover letter. It's essentially, to me, you're writing a little, like, almost like in a book jacket, like that biography about the author, that little blurb. That's it. That is your introduction to these host families. And if you're not really showing your personality, they don't get to know the real you. And that's a shame, because we want to know the real you. That's what makes you you.
Because they're all amazing.
Yeah.
Some of the letters that have piqued our interest the most are the ones where the student kind of talks about, this is my day. This is how I go through my day. Here's what I do, because it gives us perspective on them and their life.
Right. I appreciate that insight. And I'm sure exchange students are also going to appreciate your insight coming from the people who are choosing the students to host. And I appreciate that local coordinator too, also pointing out potentially that a student by themselves may be a little lonely. From my perspective, I'm an only child. So I definitely understand that loneliness and not having somebody your own age to talk to. I was pretty lucky in having cousins who lived right next door, but we also drove each other nuts.
Yeah. And kind of on the flip side of that, as a local coordinator, I'm working with a family that has 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to host a student that was used to having siblings. Because she felt like maybe hosting an only child, they wouldn't be used to having that extra responsibility and extra people around.
Right. It makes sense.
Yeah. Just one last thing to add on to that. It's like, one of the things we end up talking with the kids about is when they're coming over here, they're coming over to experience things. And maybe it's an opportunity to, if you are an only child, to experience living with siblings, host siblings, and getting that experience, because maybe you don't know that yet. And since you're already experiencing another country, you can experience other things at the same time.
Perfect. You had mentioned, Krystle, that you were a local coordinator. Were you a local coordinator before you became a host parent?
No.
Okay.
It was actually David that got me roped into it, so to say, because he had recommended us to apply, because at that time he was the only one in the area.
He had a lot of students and families under his protection and guidance. He was a very busy guy.
Yes.
And for those who may not know, what is a local coordinator?
So we are responsible for being kind of that first line of defense for the students. Their host families, of course, are the first one they go to, but we are there to make sure that they're safe, that they're happy. And if for whatever reason, because it does happen, there is a problem with them and the host family, one way or another, we are there to kind of help mediate that.
Perfect. And I remember you had saying one of your students that you chose was part of the Flex program. Would you all be able to give us a little bit of insight as to what that is for those who may not know?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. So the Flex program is a scholarship program, particularly for students in Eurasia, countries that we are trying to build more knowledge and understanding of, more relationships with. Some of their populations are Muslim, and those students come here very specifically to share their culture.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what Aitanuk did. She was all in.
I'll talk about that. There actually is a requirement for them to put on presentations about their country that they're from, to usually to their school. But Aitanuk, being the overachiever that she is, asked us if she could do it elsewhere. So actually, I'm a middle school band director, And so one day she and her host sister, and actually another friend of theirs who was a part of another foreign exchange program, all came to my school and put on presentations for students at my school about Kyrgyzstan. And I mean, she went all out. She wore traditional clothing, talked about their game. She even did a performance on their traditional instrument, the komuz, and things like that. And yeah, it's very fascinating to be able to learn about that. And, you know, my students for the rest of the year would always ask me, well, how are they doing? What are they up to now? And things like that. And actually, Aitanuk was also working on volunteer hours. So sometimes she would come out and do volunteer events at my district. Like, we have a food bank that runs my district because it's a very low income district. So my kids always get to check in and say hi. And it was really neat connections for them to get to make that way. And my fellow staff members, like my principal talks to me all the time, like, how are the girls doing and stuff like this, and just always checking in and wondering about them.
Their requirement for service hours is like 35 a semester. Chinook was like, no, I'm doing 100.
Oh my goodness.
So she did.
Now that is an achiever. My gosh. Love the points you were making about how the whole community ended up rallying around these girls and really becoming close with them. That's honestly all we could ever hope for. And it's so great that they were able to make such an impact in the time that they were there. The instrument that Aitanuk was playing, what was that called again?
It's called a komuz.
A komuz.
Spelled K-O-M-U-Z.
Okay.
And it's similar in Western music, similar to like a guitar or almost a banjo without the drumhead part. She went to school for multiple years learning how to and can play it really well.
Wow. That sounds so awesome. You'd mentioned your German student also was rather musically inclined, and she was part of the region choir and a big part of that. How long had she been singing before she came on exchange?
Oh, several years.
Nice.
I think she started in late elementary school, if I remember right.
I think so.
Yeah. And she was singing in the music school in Germany because that's how, like, school is a bit different there, of course. I mean, they have all of their core classes during the day. And then when they want to do something like sports or music or anything like that, it's a separate after school. So she studied music for a long time and she's quite talented. And when she came and joined the choir program, like the director put her in varsity choir.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, both the kids got involved with multiple things. I mean, Aitanuk tried to do sports and stuff like that. They both were in debate class. Each of them ended up going to a debate contest at some point. Of course, Vivka was doing all the choir stuff. And yeah, and that's one thing that we've come to really encourage the students to do is get involved with the different things that are going on, because that's how you make your friends. That's how you make your connections, because you start doing those things. And both times we've hosted, our kids we've hosted have managed to make like one bestie that's also a foreign exchange student. And that kid ended up spending more time at our house than we ever expected. And they kind of became our third kid. And this year they had our friend Rim from Switzerland. And she was also heavily involved in things. She did a lot of swim team, water polo, stuff like that. Yeah, just getting involved with all the different activities. They were both in National Honor Society doing things like that. Just, making those connections.
Very involved girls. That's very impressive. It's something we noticed quite a bit too with these exchange students. They tend to be overachievers. They tend to be people who want to stay involved and want to be active in their community. It's so great that they had you both to encourage them to do that and really get involved in their school community. So I'm backtracking a little bit, but I would like to hear what the experience was like picking them up from the airport and meeting them for the very first time.
So we made it a point to choose them kind of early on in the process so that we could have a good amount of time to talk to them before they arrived.
Yeah.
And I think that made a huge difference because it just built up this anticipation like, oh my gosh, we cannot wait to see them. And this year, let's see, it was Aitanuk who arrived first. She arrived like late morning one day and poor Eric could not find a place to park.
Oh, no.
So, I got out of the car and went in to meet her while he was still trying to park. And when she came off the plane, it was a giant hug. In fact, she has video of it.
Oh.
Not only does she have video of it, she posted it to TikTok, and she was very proud to tell us it had gotten a whole bunch of views.
Ooh, exciting. We'll have to find her video and share it with everybody. That's so cool. And how was it for Vika?
That was super cool too, just because that was later at night. We were tired. She was tired, but still, like, just the smile on her face when she saw us I don't think that's anything I'm going to forget. So,
yeah. And I want to touch on what Krystle talked about, how we chose these girls early. Communication from the get-go is of paramount importance.
Yeah.
Being able to develop connections in advance, talk with each other, meet each other, as it were, from a distance, makes that initial meeting and those initial days so much easier. The first time we did this, we didn't know that. We had chosen the students that we did and thinking like April or May. We had I think maybe one conversation with them prior to their arrival.
Yeah.
And in both instances, we have become family. Like, we really view these kids as our kids forever. And they view us as their American parents and things like that. But the process of getting to know each other was so much faster when we opened up the communication so much earlier. Gotcha. It allowed us to all get to know each other and kind of figure out a few quirks here and there. It was still definitely a learning process once they were here.
Yeah.
But it made it much easier.
Gotcha. I know, obviously, with time differences, it's got to be a little tricky trying to plan how you're going to talk to one another. With Germany, I think it's only like 6 hours ahead of us here where we are in Michigan. It's got to be, I think, like 7 for you all. But how far ahead was Kyrgyzstan?
11 or 12, depending on daylight savings time.
Yeah.
So how did that work?
We had to be creative. Usually it meant that we woke up early because, like, if we woke up to talk to her at like 7 a.m., it was like 7 p.m. for her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Even now, after she's returned, we'll communicate with each other. And it's like, we can usually expect to get like a message really early in the morning, or right around dinner time, we'll start getting some messages because she's just woken up.
Because she's already gone back, unfortunately. But when she did, like, it took her a while to get used to that time zone too. So
I can't imagine trying to wrap my head around that and get used to that new normal. Were you able to talk to their natural parents a little bit before too and develop a bond with them?
Yes.
Nice.
I would say Vipka's parents a little bit more than Aitanuk's because the language barrier was less.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, Vipka's, both her parents had visited the United States prior to her coming over. And in fact, I believe she told us they have family over in Canada.
Okay.
So they have some familiarity with English, but Aitanuk's parents, not a lick English experience at all. And that's okay. I mean, you use Google Translate and you message through like WhatsApp. You send text messages, things like that.
Gotcha. So
we managed to do that, and we would ask her, "Does this translate right?"
Nice you had the second eye to make sure you're not saying something silly, because Google Translate will be betraying. It betrays people.
It can. Yeah.
Oh, it definitely does. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have there been any funny moments of mistranslation with your girls that you could talk about?
So, okay, I have to tell this very first one. And it's not really a mistranslation, it's a mispronunciation.
Okay.
So, Aitanuk from Kyrgyzstan, and it's pretty much across the board in Kyrgyzstan. They can all speak Kyrgyz and Russian.
Gotcha.
So she comes over and we're talking about things. And in our first meal we're having, I was like, so what's everybody's favorite kind of meal? And I think we were actually having soup that night, right?
I think so.
Aitanuk, still figuring out how to pronounce words and stuff like this, pronounce the word soup as soap.
Oh.
So she says, oh, I really love soap. I'm like, soap? Really? Really? Are you sure you mean soap? And yeah.
She's like, no, soap. We're like, oh, soup. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of those core memories that all of us remember and will remember forever.
Very close word-wise. I get it.
It is.
And Krystle, do you have any memories like that you could share with us?
So over New Year's, well, between Christmas and New Year's, we took the girls to Disney World. Yeah, and we had gone with one of my best friends that I've known for years and years. It was her son's graduation celebration.
Aww.
So we all went together as a big family. And this trip cost quite a bit of money. So it was one that we had to get permission for, etc.
Yeah.
And when we messaged iChinook's parents about it, when they messaged us back, it was one of those times that it didn't quite translate right. And we initially thought they said they weren't going to allow her to go.
Oh.
And it was like, wait, what?
Oh, no.
But iChinook read it again. She's like, no, this means... So, and we knew for sure that she was going because they had signed the paper.
Well, crisis averted in that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. You got to show them Disney World. Were there any other places that you were able to travel with them and allow them to experience?
Some different things here in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of exploring around, checking different things out. We went down to the beach, of course, because...
Nice.
Yeah, the first time was really cold, but we all had a good time. And then the second time was pretty warm because we went at the end of May. So
nice.
My skin is still peeling.
Right there with you. Yeah. The summer and the pale complexion does not mix well. That's awesome that they were able to check out some new places here in the States and Disney World. Was there a favorite attraction or something that they really were excited about at Disney World that you got to watch them enjoy?
My goodness.
I mean,
which day?
All of it.
I will talk about one moment that was it was very touching because I know, around the world, pretty much everybody's familiar with Disney and you all have your translations and stuff like this. And we ended up going to this kind of live show about Frozen.
Yeah.
And they had actors up on the stage and stuff like this. And as we walked out, Ichinook became just very emotional. And she's like, it was like reliving my childhood kind of thing. And it was such a very touching moment and all the different kind of wondrous things, the feelings that you get when you go to Disney, despite all the long lines and stuff like that. There's still that magic that happens when you're there. So
that's beautiful.
It was.
We also discovered that they love roller coasters, which is good because we have a Six Flags here in town. So they went several times.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I can't relate. I am terrified of heights and roller coasters. So I'm not your girl for that, but everything else with Disney, absolutely. So you were able to share quite a bit about the U.S. culture and certain things that we have around here. Were there any cultural traditions or foods that they were able to share with you while they were with you?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Do you remember Samsi? That was what it was called, right?
Yeah, that's what Ichinook made for Thanksgiving. Ichinook made several different dishes from Kyrgyzstan.
Buckwheat soap.
Yes. Yeah, I was feeling ill one time, and so she decided to make soup. And I don't know if I have the little thing right now. She left a little note with it and said, "Here is healing soup for the best host dad." Aww. She was always very affectionate and trying to take care of all of us around here. But food is the universal language. Mm-hmm. One thing we've always looked for in profiles is kids who talk about cooking food and things like that and baking and stuff like that. In fact, now both years we've hosted students, and it's going to become a tradition. We actually invite them to invite all of their friends, and we have a big international meal where everybody brings dishes from their culture and we share it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they both, I think, Vipka made a German chocolate cake. Ichinook made her samsi. And then they had friends from all over. We had a dish from Egypt. We had a dish from the Philippines. We had a dish from Switzerland. Where else? I'm missing some.
France,
that's right.
The lumpia. Did you say the Philippines already?
Yeah. Lumpia we had in there. I made green chili beef so we could have tacos with that.
Nice.
I made Navajo fry bread.
Yum.
So food is something that we love sharing, and we encourage them to cook, and we invite them to cook with us.
The thing that was kind of cool about when we did it this year was not all of their friends from school were foreign exchange students, but they were American-born kids whose parents were from other countries, which is why we got to experience all of that.
That's so cool. And obviously, of course, Ichinook and Vipka got to try out some American foods. Were there any standouts for them?
They love Mexican food.
Elite choice. Absolutely top.
Right?
S tier. Excellent.
Yes. Tacos. Yeah.
When in Texas, the Tex-Mex scene.
Yes.
I mean, unreal.
Well, and of course, we want to have them experience all sorts of different things.
Mm-hmm.
They both came to really love Raising Cane's.
Of course.
They absolutely love Raising Cane's. We always have the contest each year because I'm a big fan of Whataburger and Krystle's a big fan of In-N-Out. So we always have to figure out which one they prefer.
Okay.
I'm not sure we ever got a firm answer this year.
Rim wants to tie. In-N-Out's winning right now.
Ooh.
For the tiebreaker.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't had Whataburger yet. I've had In-N-Out, and I can see why people go nuts over it. It's really good.
Well, say if you ever come down to Texas, we can take you to Whataburger.
No,
Sounds
and
like a plan.
Whataburger's really good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's just there's just something about In-N-Out.
Yeah. Does Whataburger have the fun paper hats? Because that kind of sold me with In-N-Out.
They don't.
No, they just have a
Come
lot more
on.
variety in their food.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it is about food, but what about the fashion? Come on. I also, you got to experience holidays together. Were there any holidays, especially with Aitanuk, that you were able to experience for the first time with your students?
Yeah. Halloween and Christmas
Ooh.
had never been a thing for her before.
Yeah.
And she was really excited about it.
And of course, the uniquely American one of Thanksgiving.
Yes.
That's always a big one.
Did she bring any holiday traditions over from Kyrgyzstan?
Not really. She did talk a lot about, especially in Kyrgyzstan, they're very big on like Mother's Day, Father's Day
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's a very big deal for them, very family oriented kind of thing over there. She is Muslim,
Mhm.
but we didn't talk too much about the Muslim holidays. Like,
Okay.
she did participate in
Ramadan.
Ramadan
Okay.
and stuff like that. But that was her choice, and we worked it into our schedule. And I'm always an early riser. My body doesn't let me sleep past 5 most days. Usually I'm up even before that.
Mhm.
And so during Ramadan, she and I would get to spend time together in the morning just chatting as she was getting her meal at the beginning of the day. Because the way Ramadan works is you can eat before sunrise and after sunset, but you can't consume during the day. So yeah, getting to have those times where we just get to sit and chat one-on-one was always really nice kind of thing. But that's really the extent of holiday celebrations from her culture that we really experienced.
Gotcha.
Yeah. She talked a bit about Kyrgyzstan's Independence Day.
Mhm.
Because Kyrgyzstan as an independent country is only about 30 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So on that day, she talked about how it came to be, and she was showing us videos back home of like their celebrations and fireworks, much like the 4th of July.
Yeah, we did spend quite a bit of time talking about her culture, and she would talk about the significance of like designs in things. She gave me a kapuk, which is a traditional hat that men wear. I have it upstairs, or else I'd show it to you right now. But yeah, and talking about manas and stuff like that, which is very integral to their culture and stuff. And yeah, we talked a lot about like the yurts and the nomadic nature of the Kyrgyz culture and everything.
Yeah. Did she come from a nomadic background too, or was she more?
No.
settled? Okay.
She still lives in a small village up in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan. Although what she's told us, because this year would have been her last year at school in Kyrgyzstan. So she got back in time to participate in the graduation celebration.
Oh.
And now she's going to move to the capital city and start working and doing school and stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah, no, she's grew up in a small village of, I think was it maybe 10,000 people, I think. But in summers, she has an aunt and uncle, and they would go out and visit them as they moved around the mountainside with their yurt and stuff.
That's cool. We have a program for adults in Mongolia where they get to live a week in like the capital city, and then they also spend a week with people who are nomadic and get to see a lot of like the Mongolian countryside. So that nomadic way of living has always been very intriguing to me. And I like being settled. I'm used to that. So hearing the other way is very interesting to me.
It is. So it's like, what is that like to not really be in one place?
Yeah, it sounds, just from hearing you talk about your experiences, that you really built strong connections with these girls. And how did that happen? I know you had talked quite a bit in the beginning before they got there, but as they arrived and they were settling in, how did you still manage to create such a strong bond with them?
Just a lot of spending time with them, having conversations at dinner, being open and honest. Like, that's the biggest thing with us.
Yeah.
Like when they get here, we kind of tell them, look, you're in a new setting right now. You're in a new country. You're teenagers. You're going to have choices and you're probably going to mess up. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But our job is to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to know. Like, you can tell us anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's made a huge difference.
Another part of it is encouraging them to talk about their views, the views that they have on political, social issues. You know, they've told us before that before they come over, they're told to be careful about talking about politics and stuff like that. The thing is, you don't get to know someone unless you talk about what matters to them.
Yeah.
What are their principles? What are their values?
Yeah.
How are they different? How are they similar? And being able to have those conversations and being open to it and saying, hey, you have this view, I have this view, but we're still here. We're making this work. This is how we want the world to work. So this is what we do. We encourage this kind of stuff. You know, I'm not a particularly religious person myself, but both of our girls this year were religious. And we did have conversations about that. But it's also just because we have the different views on that stuff, we're still all good people.
Right.
We still care about each other. And being able to show them that and show them that we accept them for who they are and they accept us for who we are, that helps build that connection.
And it's just kind of funny because he made me remember that it was our first conversation with Vipka. We dove into politics almost right away because she was like, I need to know this. I need to know that.
I've noticed that a few with like the German students in particular. They're very intrigued with political situations here in the United States and how it affects the global scale.
Well, they're taught to pay attention now.
Yeah, exactly. It comes down to difference in education in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But I assume it wasn't sunshine and rainbows when you're hosting, and I'm sure that there were some challenges to overcome. And I'm curious if you could give us some insight onto some of the challenges that you face as a family and how you were able to overcome that.
Of course. I mean, sometimes you're not always going to agree. I mean, these are still teenagers. And like the first time we hosted, there was disagreement because I happened to be teaching at their school. So unfortunately for them, I knew most of the kids, and prom came and they were like, oh, we want to go to this after party. And I saw the invitation on Insta and I saw who was hosting it. And I said, absolutely not.
Yep.
Yeah. The challenges we faced are really no different than the challenges any family with teenagers face.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're experiencing things, they have their views and stuff, and they value their own independence. And sometimes that clashes. Like, of course, our concern is making sure they stay safe, but they're still learning. And sometimes there were times they wanted to do things that that's probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
But creating the bond that we did at the beginning helped navigate through those situations because they felt comfortable talking to us about them. Beyond that, it really just, if conflicts came up, it came down to, hey, we need you to help out, but I wanted to do this, but we need to get this stuff taken care of kind of thing. That's really what it boiled down to. The conflicts that did happen sometimes were between the kids themselves.
Okay.
And especially this year, I think it really boiled down to cultural differences because they were from two very different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And they still worked through it. That's the thing, is that they were able to work through it. And that's one thing I never did foreign exchange when I was a kid. I can't say enough about how amazed I am with these kids. They're willing to put themselves in this situation going into this. And you have to have an open mind to be willing to do this. And as long as you keep that in mind, and it's like, hey, we're different from each other. This is going to happen. It works out in the end, as long as everybody's coming at it from just being like, we're still trying to make this work as a family.
Yeah. And as far as they're concerned, they're still sisters. Yeah. That's pretty great. We did have another challenge this year that we hadn't experienced before. That wasn't a conflict, but Vipka managed to break her foot.
Oh, how did that happen?
So she was at her friend's house and it was dark outside and they have dogs. So they were letting the dogs out and she stepped wrong off the step. And that's all it took.
Oof. Yikes.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
So navigating all of that, like advice to future host families, make sure you know all the ins and outs of the insurance.
Yeah. Yes, they do come with insurance.
Right. But make sure you know how to navigate it.
Right.
International insurance sometimes works different than what we're used to here in the United States. So it involves contacting them and staying in communication with the insurance agency.
How's her foot now? Is she healed up and better?
It's good.
Oh, good.
It was kind of a hairline fracture, so it was one of those situations where she had to be in a boot for a few weeks.
Yep.
And now she's good to go.
Good. So. Well, happy ending there at least.
Yes. Thankfully.
So,
yeah. No surgery, thank God.
Oh yeah, that'd have been a mess. Oh. So I mean, just from hearing how you're overcoming challenges, it seems like a lot of open communication, building that trust to begin with. Do you have any other advice for host families who may be facing challenges with their exchange student and trying to work through them?
Definitely, it seems obvious to me, but it might not be obvious to everyone. Talk about it first. Like, if you're having an issue with something that's happening with the student, talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and as a local coordinator, we're supposed to be the second option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's also, when you talk about it, this is how I'm viewing this. This is what I see. This is what I'm experiencing. Because the other side may not be interpreting, may not realize. And that's very common even amongst Americans to Americans, but even more so when you're talking to somebody who comes from a different cultural background. They may not view things the same as you. And so you have to talk about it in terms of, look, here is what I'm used to. Here's how I do things. Mm-hmm. And here's what I'm hoping we can get out of this. And encouraging them to be upfront and honest about how they're feeling. Well, maybe they're not used to taking care of these things in this way. And it's like, okay, well, now that we both know where we're coming from, we're living here together. So let's come to a compromise. Let's come to a solution that works for both of us to being comfortable here.
Thank you for your insights and your advice. I think that could be very helpful, especially for first-time host parents. It could be quite intimidating.
Yeah.
So what would you say has been the most rewarding aspect of being host parents?
The extended family. We developed these family relationships. It's not that we spent a year with these kids and they're moving off and they're doing their own thing and that's that. We still talk to our kids from our first year doing this. We talk to their families. We've actually become close to the aunt of one of our kids from the first year because we share similar views on things. And, whenever the kids go home, we always get this message of, you always have a place to stay if you ever come here. It's having family connections everywhere. That is the biggest thing for me, is being able to have that connection. And not because, I have a place to stay. No, I know somebody from that culture. I now know more about Islam than I ever knew before.
Right.
And quite frankly, it's much different than way many people here in the United States purport Islam to be. So it's that better understanding of what's going on elsewhere that opens up that worldview. For me, that's the biggest thing that I've gained out of this.
How about for you, Krystle?
Definitely the same thing. I mean, just knowing that these kids are our kids for life. So, and just when their parents contact us and express their gratitude for doing what we did for the year, it's just really special.
Hey, have you ever thought about bringing the world to your home?
I have. With YFU USA, you can. By hosting an exchange student, you'll experience a brand new culture right in your own home.
It's an incredible opportunity to make lifelong connections and help a young student discover the American way of life.
Want more info? Visit yfuusa.org to learn more about how you can become a host family today.
So that being said, it should be acknowledged that we have been very fortunate in the kids that we have been matched up with.
Right.
It doesn't always happen. There are times that conflicts happen. Hopefully the families and the kids and the local coordinator can work through it and make sure it all works. But be aware that the potential for any outcome is possible, and just be prepared for that as well. Because it's like, like I said, we've been very lucky, and we hope to continue being lucky in how things go. And we put a lot of thought into who we try and host for that very reason. But in the end, you still have learned more about the world. Even if you didn't develop a strong connection with the kid, you know more and they know more. So everybody's still benefited in some way.
Yeah. I appreciate you touching on it isn't always the greatest situation.
Yeah.
With hosting.
And because our girls have met so many other students, like, I mean, we've seen it happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen instances where things weren't working well.
Yeah. And the important thing to remember for people who maybe be considering hosting and hear that and are like, I'm not sure about that. There are support systems here for you. There are people who are going to help you. And if it doesn't work out, we find other arrangements. We make it work, because that's just what you have to do. But how would you say personally hosting has changed you or helped you to grow?
It's definitely helped me. I always have been a pretty open-minded person.
Yeah.
But I think that this has brought it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Just learning about things from other perspectives.
As an educator, because I am a teacher, I will say that it has opened up my understanding of, I have a better understanding where some of my kids come from. I live across town for where my kids go to school. And I've lived my own life. I've had my own experiences. And so being able to learn about the experiences that these kids have from around the world has helped me better connect with my own students even, and understand where they're coming from, being like, okay, that's different from me, but I still care about you, and I can find ways to help you understand that I care about you. And quite frankly, there are some teachers that struggle with that. And this kind of stuff really helps with that.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Eric. That was going to be my next question, is how it helped you to grow in your professional lives as teachers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just because, like, having the experience of kind of being a parent definitely shapes how you teach.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Now, on the other hand, that's not to say that teachers who don't have children can't be good teachers.
Yeah.
Because that's a hill I will die on. That's a whole nother story. But it does add another layer of understanding, I think.
Absolutely. And would you say that hosting has given you a nice taste of parenthood and being parents to these wonderful students?
Absolutely.
Yes, the good and the bad.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. And would you say that it's giving you a different perspective on your own dynamic together as a family and as a couple?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were married for several years prior to getting involved with this.
Yeah.
But when we started hosting, it helped us, like, we've learned our own parenting styles and how we have to work together to help our kids succeed, but also help each other succeed in doing things. You learn about the thing of, like, the kids figuring out which parent is the one to go to when you want something, and when, and things like that. And so we've always been strong proponents of open communication between each other, but it has just exemplified that and helped us be even better at communicating with each other, because we have to communicate with them. We have to stay in communication with each other to make it all work. So that's helped us tremendously in that regard.
Wonderful.
Definitely.
Absolutely wonderful. I'm curious, are you planning on hosting again in the future?
Yes, we are.
Oh, exciting.
I'll talk about one, you talk about the other.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So we don't always try to find kids who are musically inclined, but sometimes it happens. This year we hosted Vivka from Germany, and she's a singer and stuff like this. For both times we've hosted now, it's been girls. And we've even talked about each other, like, we're always hosting girls and have to be up front. We host girls because they tend to be the ones that are more willing to talk, in our experience.
Gotcha.
The foreign exchange boys who we talk to are like typical teenage boys and don't always talk.
Yeah.
So we are inclined more towards girls, but we had looked strongly at some of the guys that were available and really thinking about that. And then we came across the profile of a young lady from Belgium. And it was very clear in there that she's been heavily involved in music and playing the clarinet.
Nice.
Through a little sleuthing, I did manage to figure out what group she played with and stuff like this. And it was an immediate match. So we ended up putting in that we wanted to host her. And we're hosting this young lady from Belgium. I'm not going to say names because she's not over here yet, so we'll just keep the privacy there.
Yes.
But I will say she is joining the marching band at her school, all this stuff. We've already been in contact with band director and stuff like this. But yeah, we're going to be hosting her, and she's actually coming in early so she can participate in all the pre-year stuff that they have to do and whatnot. But yes, we got a clarinet player from Belgium coming over.
So, and once we knew right away that we wanted to host her, finding her sister was a little more challenging, only because we would find somebody that we were like, oh, that's a great fit. And then our school district is pretty strict about how many credits they need to have. So finding somebody who was old enough was a little harder, but we managed to choose a girl coming from Finland. So, and she's an animal lover. And we ourselves have a small zoo. So
one of our cats made a cameo behind me during this. So
I thought I saw that kitty. Yay.
Yeah. And she is one of those people who has like a whole bunch of interests and can't focus on one. So that fits perfectly with my ADHD brain. So
oh, that is fantastic. And I wish you and your students a fantastic exchange year together. And
thank you.
From the sounds of it, I think they're in good hands with the both of you. They're very lucky.
And we're lucky to be able to host them.
Do you have any advice for any people who may be considering hosting who are listening?
I'll quote the old ad from Nike back in the day. Just do it.
That's been a very common sentiment with these podcasts.
And the thing is, hopefully you're doing it with the right mindset, that you're wanting to expand your awareness of the world. You're wanting to expand your connections. It is a life-changing experience in many good ways. And it helps you understand things better. And it's worthwhile. It's not always easy. And it's not 100% positive. This is amazing the entire time. But it is what you make of it. If you go into it with the mindset of, I'm going to grow, I'm going to help them grow, more than likely you're going to find success.
Yeah. Because not everything that's worth doing is always easy. It's very fair to have some anxieties about it. It's very fair to think about, oh, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Of course, because that could happen. But just do it.
Never know until you try.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. And for my final question, is there a memory or a story that really sticks out to you in your time of hosting that we didn't get to share and talk about?
So with our first two, the way that, because we talked about how we didn't talk to them as long before they arrived.
Yeah.
So bonding took just a little bit longer, but we took them on a road trip from Texas to our home state of Arizona. And during that trip, we learned a lot about each other.
Awesome.
And there's one memory from this year that just sticks out in my mind. Yeah. There was an evening that
Krystle and Vibka had something to do. So it was just me and Itanuk for the night. And we went out for dinner and we just went kind of around and did things. And she's like, because she is the kid who wants to be on TikTok. She wants to be a Kyrgyz influencer. She's like, let's record a video. So she pulled up that old song, Just the Two of Us. And there's video of me and her just kind of dancing and lip syncing along to Just the Two of Us. And that one will always stick in my memory.
That's so sweet. Oh,
yeah. That same night, my students, my middle school choir students, were at the San Antonio Opera, because the San Antonio Opera has a program where they do a free dress rehearsal for schools.
Oh.
So I was there, and so was Vipka's choir. So then afterwards, we got to talk about the opera, and that was really cool.
Awesome. Eric, Krystle, thank you so much for your time, for your stories, for your wisdom. I've had such a pleasure talking to both of you, and I wish you nothing but happiness and success for this hosting year coming up and all your years in the future. And for people who might be interested in following along with the Wells family, are you on social media? Is there somewhere where they could keep up with you?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
Awesome. Thank you.
Basically all the things.
Perfect. Well, I'll have to make sure to get that and we can put them in the show notes in case people want to follow along. It'd be great to also have you to answer maybe questions from personal experience too, if you're up for that. But of course, I'm not going to force you.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having us on. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to share our experiences. We like sharing and talking about this stuff. So
You do.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much. And that has been this episode of Life Exchange Stories of Understanding. I'm your host, Kelsey Ross. Until next time, bye.
Listen to Life Exchange Stories of Understanding now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.